Welcome to the JavaScript DOM introduction video. We're going to introduce the JavaScript DOM. Okay, DOM stands for Document Object Model. Our goals here, we've got a bunch of them. We want to understand the DOM in terms of a tree data structure for containment and its inheritance hierarchy for functionality. Okay, so we've got two different things going on. A tree data structure for containment plus inheritance for functionality of different DOM elements. Okay, we're going to understand and use the fundamental DOM interfaces: node, document, element, and window. We're going to use these things to be able to select and modify elements on a page, DOM elements, HTML elements, via the DOM APIs. Okay, so select and modify stuff on the page. We're going to be able to create, add, and insert, add, remove elements, HTML elements via the document object model. And importantly, also, we're going to be able to alter class attributes associated with an element via the classList API. Okay, so we're going to have this theoretical understanding, but then we're going to make sure we can select, modify, create, add, insert, and modify, alter, add, remove class attributes associated with an element via this classList API. Good readings. Fundamental, not quite enough, okay, for everything we need to do. DOM Enlightenment, a very complete free ebook, way more than you have time to do, but you could use it, makes a good reference. And another good reference, Basics of DOM Manipulation in Vanilla JavaScript. What do they mean by vanilla JavaScript? Regular JavaScript without using any libraries. Okay, the time for doing lots of stuff with the DOM via libraries like jQuery has passed. Okay, even the Bootstrap framework, CSS framework that used to use jQuery to help it do certain things has pulled that out now. Okay, it was a very good library. It did a lot. It helped us across lots of browser things. Okay, but now we can use plain modern JavaScript. Don't have to add in extra stuff. Okay, references. Nice reference of all the web APIs, the HTML DOM API, and the specific APIs for window, document, and element. Okay, so this is a lot of reference stuff. That's why emphasizing this big picture. Then we're going to look at, what are the few things I have to kind of know exist so I can do things. Okay. There are a lot of web APIs provided by browsers. We're going to be going over the DOM, which is fundamental for creating user interfaces. However, there are networking interfaces, particularly fetch, that we'll use in this class to get information directly from a server. Also, there's web sockets. I use web sockets to create the CS-oriented audience response system known as CSORs. Okay, there's data storage interfaces. Okay, web storage for small amounts of data, and IndexedDB, which is good for large amounts of data. I would say the documentation is not the greatest, but it works very well. I've had good success with it after cranking down into the details. Multimedia, WebGL, web audio, geolocation, just a bunch. Okay, very full and rich programming environment in a web browser. What is the DOM? The DOM is the document object model is a programming interface for HTML documents. It provides a structured representation of the document. Okay, it defines the way the structure can be accessed, searched from programs modify, so they can change the document structure, style, and content. Okay. It provides the representation of the document as a structured group of nodes. Nodes, objects that have properties and methods. Right? Essentially, it connects web pages to scripts or programming languages. Okay. The DOM is available for JavaScript running in a browser. It's not available if you're not in a browser. Okay. For non-browser applications, there are libraries to help work with these, with HTML. They don't necessarily implement the full DOM. If you're working with Python, for example, Beautiful Soup library is very popular for working with HTML5 documents. It's not nearly the power that we have with the browser, okay, to be able to make full user interfaces. Okay. We have a containment hierarchy. The biggest thing we have is the window. Okay. That means the tab. A tab in your web browser represents the window. Document represents the page. The page has the head, the body, and all the elements contained in the body. Okay. We start with a basic inheritance hierarchy, meaning both document and element inherit from node and get its properties and methods. Okay. So document and element. Element is going to be the things we put in documents. Documents got its own interface that's separate from element, and same with element separate from document. They're both nodes. What's in a node? Node has, it's got child nodes. It's got a first child, a last child, tag name for an HTML element. It's got a node type. Oh, look at this. It's got a pen child, insert before, and remove child. Huh? Why node? Node provides the class for traversing and modifying the DOM tree. Data structures, trees, oh my gosh, graphs. Stick on. This isn't that bad. The elements that make up a document are modeled as a containment tree. Huh? What do you mean by that, Professor? Look. We allow nesting, right? Body can contain sections, which can contain subsections, which can contain paragraphs. Outline lists contain list items, which contain paragraphs, etc., etc. That nested structure is represented as a tree. So an element gets one parent. Okay, what do we mean by parent? What would that mean? An element, say a paragraph, or a span. Okay, it gets one parent. That's the element that contains it. Okay, the element is nested within another element. The element that's directly outside it in the nesting hierarchy is its parent. Okay. Otherwise, you say ancestors and grandparents, but we don't worry about that. Okay. So an element gets one parent, not two. It's a simple tree in that sense. It's one parent, and it's whoever it's nested within is its parent. An element can have 0 or more children. These are the elements that are directly nested within it. Oh, okay. So it's not a really complicated tree to understand. It's not showing all sorts of random relations, etc. like that. It's just who's contained in who, with the parent and the ultimate parent being HTML, which contains then head, which contains body. Body can contain all sorts of stuff, right? Headers, headings, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So that's what we're using nodes for. So when we see child nodes, this gives us a list of the directly nested items within the node we are working with. Okay, I'll buy that. Hence, way up at the top in this abstract hierarchy, we're allowed to do things like add new things or insert them before a certain place, and we can remove things. This is how we will manipulate the DOM when we add and remove things. Okay, big picture, adding new elements, modifying elements, content, easier. Okay, we don't need, it's fancy. Okay, that's a different thing. Okay, but we're going to directly use this abstract interface for adding things to elements. Meaning, if I want to add a span to a paragraph, I'll use a pen child or insert before. Okay, if I want to remove a span from a paragraph, I'll use remove child. If I want to remove a paragraph from a section, I'll use remove child. Okay. We're going to look at an example page. Okay. Open this up in a new tab for practice. Okay. Let's take a look at this page to reiterate the inspector, reiterate this containment hierarchy. Look, here's HTML. Okay, that's the entire page. That's the document. Okay, within it, we have two sub-pieces, the head and the body. The head is not visible, but the head still is part of the containment hierarchy. It's got its own children, meta, 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 meta. Okay, style here is within the head, and it's got a bunch of extra pieces within it. Okay, now if we go to the body, we'll notice, oh, we have a header. A header has children H1, H2, and P. Okay, what we see here, I'll emphasize again, is the DOM. This is our graphical, this is a nice graphical representation of what the DOM is. Okay, this is directly tied with it. That's why when we hover over things, it's showing us the corresponding piece on the page. We're directly seeing the live DOM. It's a nice way to understand this. Okay, and so, what's the parent of header? Body. What are the children of header? H1, H2, and this paragraph. Okay. A couple other plain text pieces can kind of sneak in. We have to be a little careful of just saying this is the first child, because there may be some plain text nodes that get inserted. Okay, but we have ways of dealing with that. Okay, so this is our example page. Okay, and we're going to do some work with it. Okay, but we're not going to worry completely about the scripts I show because it's a little bit intense. Okay, so let's first take a bit of a look at some data. I'm setting up some data for use later. Okay, I'm going to have languages, my languages, these are programming languages that I've dealt with, and it's an array of objects. And what they contain is each object contains a name and a description. Okay, and it goes on and on and on. Okay. Okay, and we're going to do stuff with that to add things to the page, like you would do eventually. You're going to create page content from data. What's a good way of holding raw data? Arrays of JavaScript objects. We'll see that get formalized when we learn about JSON. Okay. So what can we do with the document? The page is the same as the document, corresponds to the HTML element, but we don't have to talk to it about it that way. Okay. We can query, enhance, and modify the web page this way. Real simple things. Let's go to the, okay. Real simple things. Okay. We can get at things like the title, the head, and the body just from our dev. Okay. Document. That gets us the document. Dot. That shows us all the things that are available in document, more than you would ever want to know. I can go title, and I see that the title of this document is DOM practice. Let's verify. In the head, there's a title element, DOM practice. Okay, so via program, JavaScript, running in the browser, we can get the title, document, body. Okay, we can get the body. Okay, good. Okay, so we can get the title, we can get the head, we can get all these pieces, okay, to work with. Okay, let's take this little example, see what it does for us. Okay, and remove some of this excess stuff. Okay, so let's take a look what I'm doing here. I'm creating a variable. It's a global variable. I could put var in front of it. Okay, ends up being the same within the dev environment. I'm not going to use, I could use let. Okay, what I'm doing is I'm going to say document body, stick the document body into a variable, a reference to the document body in the variable my body. Okay, here I'm going to use the node interface to look at the child nodes of my body. Wow, we got a node list of 9 nodes. This is what I was saying. There's these weird little text things that correspond to, I think, white space that might have gotten put in the HTML document. Okay, so those can show up in here, but they don't show up as elements. Okay, now, oh, wow, nice. I go over the header, which is this introductory material over here. Okay, and you can see it show up. I go over this section, programming languages that I have an ID for. I got this footer area, okay? And so we can see these things. Now, Professor, didn't you say we can, remove stuff? Yeah, we did. So, like, my body dot remove, or was it child? Now, I don't usually remember these things, okay? But my body, but I just looked these up as I was writing up the notes. My body, child, nodes, and which one will I remove? Well, let's remove one that we can really see. Let's try removing this header one. That's the child node 1, okay? Okay, so we're going to look and see if this disappears when I run this command down. Woohoo! It oh, I just trashed my page. Oh no, what do I do to get it back? What was that? Just hit reload. Why would that work? Because it rereads the page. Okay. Rereads the page. Yep. And recreates the DOM. So I can do as much as I want and never worry about trashing this stuff here. Okay, because I can always get it back. So it's great for practice. You can practice messing with the DOM right in your browser. Okay, we've seen the ability to look at the children. We've been seeing the ability to look at the body. What else can we do? We can look for elements. We can get elements by class name, by tag name, by ID. Okay? These are older. Okay? They produce different types of data structure than the newer one, which is document query selector, and we should have document query selector all. Okay? These provide more modern structures that they return, like a nice node list type of thing that we can easily, return something that we can easily turn into an array. The other ones, a little bit strange, so I don't use them as much except get element by ID. That one's so easy, it only returns one element, never returns a list. Okay, get element by ID. Okay. What do you mean, Professor? Well, let's try it. Get. Okay, let's try document query selector all. Professor, isn't this the same thing that you had us use to check our selectors, our CSS selectors? Yes, it is. It is the way that we check CSS selectors. Query selector all can take as complicated any type of CSS selector type thing you want. Okay, that's why I like it so much. Query selector will just return the first one. So if I go and execute this command again, but get rid of all, I just return the first paragraph it finds. Okay. So this is how I can select things off the page. Okay. If I know what the page looks like and what's in it, for example, forget the head, we want to go to the body, we look in the body, we see, look, there's this section with an ID in it. Ah, okay. So we can come over to the console. The ID is called prog langs, camel case. Let's try a different interface just to show you. Documents, get element by ID. Okay, and what did we say? Prog lang. Ah, okay. We get the section back. What good is that? We're going to see in a sec. Okay, so we can get things, we can find anything we want on a page. Okay, and we can use arbitrarily complicated selectors like we're used to from CSS to do it. Okay. Sample. Let's do a bunch with element IDs. Okay, and let's do a span.author. What is that? Oh, that's a combinator. Right, that's a combinator. It takes a span tag along that also has an author associated with it. So let's copy that. Okay, so lang section is that guy. Okay. First H1. It's the very thing up here. And let's see what author looks like. Author is this thing down here. Cool. Cool. Okay. So we're able to get things. Okay. We can create elements. Okay. The one that we'll use the most, okay, is going to be document create elements. If you need to, you can use create attribute and create document fragment. Some of those, if we have advanced cases, but for what we're going to be learning here, we're going to use document create element. Okay. Oh, element creation example. Except this is a really cool thing, but it does a lot of stuff. Let's see the simplest case. Okay. So what I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say my H3. Okay. It's not defined. I know. I'm going to create it. Document create element. And I'm going to say, let's do an H3. Okay. Let's see the magic. Okay. We created an H3. Professor, nothing's highlighting to the left. No, it isn't. Oh, because it doesn't have any content. How can we add content? Well, we can add content. And we're going to see this in a second when we get to the element interface. If we go enter HTML and set it equal to something, because right now we can see it's an empty stringish thing. So I'm going to say manipulating the DOM is fun. Okay. So the H3, my H3, wait, it's got inner HTML. Okay, but nothing. Oh, it's not attached to anything. We need to put it somewhere in the DOM. Oh, so let's go and look at lang section. Okay, let's go append child. Now we'll take that thing that we created and put it in. Ta-da! Manipulating the DOM is fun. And of course, we saw before we can do remove child. Okay, my H3 goes away. Let's bring it back and leave it there. Okay, so we can modify things with HTML. Now, remember that data I had? Okay, I wrote a nifty function, add lang. Okay, I give it a language name like C++, and what does it do? It's going to look up and find the language information. It's going to format it nicely and add a paragraph, okay, to the language section I know. Whoops, add lang. It's not defined. Oh, add lang name. C++. Ooh, look at that. C++. Let's try another one. Okay. So this is the kind of function you might write to build stuff. Now, it's doing lots of interesting things and building up information. Okay. Well, let's just take a quick peek at a little bit of that, but not get too bogged down in details. So what I'm doing is once I find, remember I had that data. I had data about the language, which had the language name and a description. What I do is I take one of those language objects. I have a class, this is all a backtick string. Okay. So class, I have a span. I give this span a class here. The paragraph gets a class lang. Span gets a class L name. Then I take the language object thing that I feed to this little teeny tiny function, and I substitute in the name, okay, span. Then I substitute in the span description. Oh, so this is going to produce a nice string that can be turned into a paragraph. Okay. What I do then, this is a bunch of things to go search for things using nice, right? You saw me enter the language name. Find function, search through that array. What does it do? It looks for the case where the item in the array has the attribute name and it matches the name that was just entered in. Okay, etc. etc. Okay, so it's iterating. L name up here. That's okay. Don't worry about all the details. Then what do? I'm going to create a new element. Okay. I'm going to add this element to the section. Okay. You can either add it, append the child, before or after you set the inner or outer HTML. If you're doing outer HTML, notice we're creating this full paragraph thing with class and all sorts of stuff. If you're going to use outer HTML, you got to place it in, you got to append it to someplace first. Okay. Inner HTML, you don't have to. Okay. So that's what that complicated thing does. Okay. Then, to be even more showing off, I can iterate through all the languages with a for each and do this stuff. This is a little command, add all. Okay, add all. It's a function. When I add it, it added a bunch more languages to my list of languages from data. Okay. So I don't expect you to understand all the stuff in that function, but the concept of taking data, running functions on it to insert data into the DOM is a good one. The fundamental things we're doing, though, is we're doing create elements, we're doing append childs or inserts, we're using inner or outer HTML to set the content of the new element. Okay. The rest gets into details. Okay, so I wanted to be able to do this to show off some of those kind of properties. Okay. Now, where are we? I've got a function clear all. Okay, to automate it. You saw me remove a single element. Okay, here's a function clear all that I have for removing everything on the page? No, all those data entries that I put in. Okay. How did that? Hey, it didn't take away this other thing I added. Why not? Oh, look at this again. Clear all. Language section. Query selector all. We get all the paragraphs in the language section. Then we go and iterate through them. Okay. My P's for each. So we go through all these paragraphs and we say, lang section, remove the P, remove the child. This is one of those functional interfaces. Ah, okay. Pretty nifty. Okay. Let me put it back for examples. So add all. Oops. Add all. Get my cases right. Okay, I'm going to move this stuff up so we're not doing everything down at the bottom. Okay, so we can remove things. Now, document has a bunch of other things that can be useful in various cases. You can get lists of forms, images, links, scripts, etc. So if you go to one of my web pages, www.grottonetworking.com, bring up your thing, you go document.links. You get not a node list, but an HTML connection of all the links on my page. Okay. Could that be of any use? Could be. Could use it to help do broken link detection. One thing. You can get all the images in a page if you're doing screen scraping or something. Okay. Document meta information is all available to you. Okay. You can get the URI of the document, the URL, the location, stuff like that. Okay. Lots of good stuff there. Okay. You don't need to use all this. It can be convenient if you. Good to know it exists. Okay. Whether you would directly program some of these things or you use some kind of library, depends on what you're doing. Okay. We're going to emphasize those basics. Create elements, find elements, modify elements, remove elements. But we didn't talk about elements yet. So what are they? It's about everything in the document, everything that you could put in the body of the document. Okay. So they have a little bit expanded interface. Document does not have this. Okay. With an element, any element, you can set the inner HTML. Okay. So if we'll do it in a second. I'm jumping ahead of myself. We can set the inner HTML or a DOM string for the outer, including its content. Okay. So it includes the markup of the element and its content. Okay. When used, okay. Must have a parent to work. Why did I put that in? Because I tried using it a bunch and then I go, why isn't this working? And I looked that up. Okay. Let's try changing the content. Okay. So what am I going to do here? What's this code doing? Current time, new date. New date gives you a new date time thing in JavaScript that has the current date and time at the time you call it. Okay, so it's good for keeping track of stuff. Start something now, that's when you started. Then check the date when you finish. Okay, and it goes down to milliseconds. I don't know how accurate the milliseconds are, but it's pretty good. Okay, what's the next one? First H1 inner HTML. Copy. Oh, let's double check. First, so there's code that actually finds and sets first H1. Okay. Okay, that's in the script that's in here. Okay. First H1, and same with the author. Remember we had those scripts before, so we can get the author. Okay. Now what's this thing going to do? It's going to get the date time. Good morning, it's blah. And it's going to set the inner HTML of change this great document. That's the first H1 we saw, right? Yeah. Next thing it's going to do is it's going to change the author. The current CS 351/651 lecture. Okay. Let's see if this works. Ah, look at that. That's simple to change the content up here. Okay. And down here for the author, let's do it by hand. Show that it's even simpler. Okay, so let's first h1 dot inner HTML equals hi class. Okay, got to be lame because we're trying to make a point. It's easy. Okay, let's try that author. Okay, the author was at the bottom of the page. Okay, author. Okay, so it's the span at the bottom. We're going to go something lame. Me. Okay. Author equals me. Oh no. What did I do? I broke it. I was supposed to say author.inner HTML. It doesn't even know what author is now. So I'm going to go author equals query a document. Let's fix my mistake. Query selector. What was it? Span dot author. Or was it capital author? No. Try it again. Add a class attached to it. There we go. We got it back. Now we do it correctly. So we don't say equal whatever. We say inner HTML equals quote me. Ah, sincerely me. Okay, see that down here? Okay, common mistake, right? I tried setting the string. What did it, and it just took the place, right? It's a variable, okay? I had to go dot inner HTML of the element, okay, and set that. All right, common mistakes that I am good at making. Okay, now, elements can have classes, and we learned how important classes and useful classes are for styling. The element interface is wondrous. ClassList interface is wonderful. Okay, so let's look at author to see if author.ClassList. Ooh, it's something called a DOM token list, and currently it contains author. Okay, author. So it currently has only one class on it. Remember, you think this is set up for dealing with many classes attached to an element? Yes, it is. Okay. Author.ClassList.add CS 351. I don't have any styling associated with a class named CS351. I mean, it's a very stylish class. I don't mean it that way. I'm just saying that I was able, as we see down here, to add a new class programmatically. What good's that, Professor? It's got a bunch of others. Okay, you can check to see if something contains a class. You can add a class. You can remove a class from the list. Makes it very easy. You don't have to do fancy list manipulation stuff or finds or stuff like that. You can replace stuff. Toggle. Let's try toggle. Okay, let's do an example. Here is a function we're going to call mystery. What does it do? What was Lang's section? Well, let's copy it and remind ourselves. We had previously, I'm going to go to the top here, here, Lang section, declared a variable and set it equal to the ID. Right? We'll use something like Lang section equals document get element by ID and whatever it was, Lang section. Okay, and that's wrong, and I just blew it away. So how do we check? We go here, we go section prog langs. Okay, my fault for not being consistent. Prog langs. Okay, so just reminding you how we got this reference. It's not magic. Prog langs. I just set it up in a script within this file. Okay, so Lang section. Okay, that's what it is. Now, let's paste mystery here. Okay. It says toggle my hide. Okay, let's try calling mystery. It went away. That whole section just disappeared. Let's try it again. It came back. It went away. It came back. What's going on here? Remember way back when we did the box model and we talked about margins? My hide has a margin of negative 200 ems, which takes it way off the page to the left. Remember, we're allowed to have negative margins. Okay? If I add my hide, toggle my hide and turn it on, it takes it off to the left. If my hide's not on, the class my show, let's take a look. Okay. Lang section dot classList has my show on it. Okay. Run mystery. And let's double check Lang section. Has both my show and my hide. So for some reason, this margin versus that margin takes precedent. Oh, it's because these rules have the same weight, and as we'll learn on the cascade, the later rule, if it's there, takes precedent. Now, how did we make it fly around? How did I do that sophisticated programming? This is known as the CSS transition. I'm not forcing anybody to use them in class, but basically it says, let's transition the property between the two values. Okay. And we let it know that we're watching the left margin. We want to wait half a second before we do it, and then we're going to take the duration of the transition from 1em to 200em, or minus 200em, minus 200em back to 1em. We're going to have it last 2 seconds. Okay. Pretty cool. These transitions, these CSS transitions, are like heavily, deeply down embedded into the browser tech. Okay, so this is the best way to do simple animations. Okay, and CSS animations are the next level of goodness because these are implemented super efficiently, particularly for little mobile browsers and stuff like that. Okay, very efficient way to do these kind of effects. You're not required to learn about these things. May give you some options to use them though. Okay, but that's how people get those nice effects. So we did that all. We did that all just by using these class lists. Okay, we use the toggle. We can do other things, okay, by doing an add and stuff like that. And it probably won't add it more than once and such like that. Very good interface used to do, okay, lots of stuff. Okay, now, just like the document interface, elements can contain other elements, so they get a full range of queries. Okay, you can do query selector just of stuff sitting in a particular element. Okay, that's really good if you're just manipulating one part of the page. You add stuff and want to find out what's in there and maybe then remove them all, etc. Okay, so elements get all the search properties that we get like on document. Remember though, document doesn't have anything like set inner HTML or outer HTML. Okay, you can get a bunch of attributes and things like that. You can get the ID. Okay, let's double check that one. So, okay, just come over to here. I'm gonna toggle that mystery to bring it back. Okay, so lang section dot ID. Oh, there it is, program. Okay, so we can get anything on that page we can get via our code. Okay. We have control over scrolling. Okay. Now, of course, you know, that gets into details. Okay. So I've got this thing over here full of all these programming languages. So my challenge to myself, not to you, was how can I scroll to a particular entry, okay, if it exists, and bring it into view. So my approach is I'll get all the language P's in the language section. Okay, I'm going to get it's going to be a node list. I want to work with it as an array. I'm going to use the array find method with suitable finder function to go find out the language name, blah, blah, blah. Then I'm going to call the paragraph scroll it into view method. Huh? Okay, here's some code. Scroll to language. It's already put into the DOM practice page, so let's just try calling it. Okay, what would I say? Scroll, okay, to language. Now these, when we do these things, okay, it's not, this part isn't simple and quick, right? You have to go look and how the scroll interface works and stuff like that. But let's say, okay, but this is showing you that it can be done. Scroll to language C++. I do not see it here. Oh, it brings it to the top. Okay. Scroll to lang JavaScript. Okay. Brings JavaScript into view. Okay. Scroll to lang Haskell. Haskell's not on my list. Okay. But it didn't do anything terrible. Okay. So we have scroll control. Okay. You may not ever use all these different features, but you may use a component that somebody built, an open source component. Okay. And then you may want to tweak the behavior. All they can do, you know, they don't have any special interface other than the ones we're seeing. Okay. So if you really had to go in and tweak something, You're seeing how they do it. There's information about element sizing. Okay, that's useful if you're doing listening for resizes. What do we get with the window? Okay, the window object is the default object. Okay, when I come over here, and if I just type the name of a property, like inner height, okay, that's the height of this from here to here of the tab. I don't have to say window because window is the default object. Okay, you'll remember in that one example, I actually messed with the window when I called the constructor function without using new on it. Okay, whatever, professor. Okay. We can get side stuff, but they don't allow us to place the window anymore. Okay, that was abused and people did all sorts of bad things. Okay, can't make a window jump around. You can look at your history. I don't think this would have any history. History, length, scroll, auto. Okay, various different properties. Window location. Let's take a look. Let's go to a home page somewhere. Router networking. Okay, let's go here and go window. Just to remind you, dot location. Location. Oh, it's the URL of the page. Can we jump to another page by changing location? Yeah. Be careful. Okay. Window search and selection. What do you mean? I mean, if I do something like that, I select something on a page, and I go get selection. It's a function. What does it give me back? Oh, a whole mess of information, but oh, look. Anchor returns the selection object for the selected items. Okay, and it tells you where the offset starts, where the item ends, etc., etc., etc. Ah, that's how they do it. What about find? Find Greg. Greg's not on the page. Find. The word given is given on the page. I see it right here. Huh. We get lots of things. So anything that you can do from anything you can do, you can get information about. Not going to try and generalize that. Okay. What else do we get? Okay. We get stuff. We get storage. We get some local storage. Okay. And such like that. Okay. These are useful for small amounts of information. Okay. Unavailable after the page is closed. Session stuff, that was the intent, but all browsers seem to have session recovery, so you can't really count on things going away unless you specifically make sure they go away with anything related to sessions, and we'll learn about that. Okay, those are good for small amounts of information. Okay, whoa. Sorry. For larger amounts of information, there's something called IndexedDB. Okay. What do I mean by that? Here is an app in progress that contains guitar chord charts. Okay, so I can say, find me a chord, a D chord, the type dominant 7. Okay, and I will get a list over here of stuff, of different chords that meet that criteria. Okay, and I can then drag that over to my chord chart. Okay, built into this is also a whole dictionary of movable type guitar chords of different types. Now, this could get big. I want people to make as many charts as they want. Okay, so there's charts right now. There's only currently one guitar chart I'm showing, etc. If I come over here and look at IndexedDB, I see for my app, which is the chord database app, and I mean database in the root sense, not in terms of SQL database, we'll see that I have structures for charts. Okay, I got a movable chord dictionary. We'll see that everything in here looks like JavaScript objects. Okay, things can get quite large if I like. Chord categories, etc. like that. This IndexedDB is pretty fast lookups for storage and such like that, and it can get pretty big. It can get into the megs or more. Okay, it's a little sophisticated to use, but if you're working with making it just an app that just runs in the browser with its own storage associated with it, the only thing I offer actually extra on that is I do offer to export things to files and bring them back in just for safety's sake in case the browser goes plut. Okay, but there's good storage facilities now in browsers, and people are learning better how to handle. Okay, storage. I mentioned that right at the beginning. You can have control over not just the scrolling of elements in their scroll bars, but of the entire window. Okay, so the DOM gives you lots of control, but remember, before you get too worried about having to remember everything, key objectives and overall understanding. Understand we have this node, document, element, and window interfaces. We're not going to worry about all the interfaces for every different type of element. For example, we're not going to use the complicated interface that comes with the HTML table because it's a complicated element and it's got its own cool DOM interface for dealing with tables. We're not going to use that. We can just use what we just learned, the basic element interface, to add things and such like that. Okay. We need to be able to select and modify elements. We need to be able to create, insert, and add. For that, we use document create. For selecting, right, we could use document, all the query selector, document get element my class, or we could use elements themselves and select within elements. We saw modifying was a matter of setting inner HTML or outer HTML. Okay. And we saw there's this thing associated with elements, this classList thing, which is just the greatest when it comes to adding, removing, seeing what classes are attached to an element so we can do all those really nice graphical, this is how we build graphical user interfaces. All right, hope you enjoyed the lecture. Bye-bye.